Well, it's all over. You know what they call graduation? When you graduate from a college, they call it commencement. And rightly so. It isn't an ending, it's a commencement, a beginning of something. And that's what I look at this Greek as. You have now done something so you can now commence to really get into the Word. Are you going to continue to study on your own? I think you will. Because many people do put their Greek aside, but you won't do that. You didn't take Greek because you had to. You took Greek because you wanted to, because you went out of your way to get into the Greek. And I don't think you want to let it stop now. You may even be going on to another Bible college. Maybe you decided to go to seminary. That's why you took the Greek in the first place. Well, whatever you do, the study that you have is has prepared you for a real lifetime of study in the Word. Now, if you go to seminary, don't let the modern pronunciation bother you. I've just noted a couple of things in Machen. If you want to turn to the alphabet there in Machen on page 9, let me show you something. He only has 3 letters pronounced differently than we do. The vita, or beta, the delta, he calls delta, and then the epsilon, we call it E, he calls it upsilon, U. Those 3 letters, that's all we've pronounced differently in the letters. Now in the diphthongs, we did do differently on those, and you can find out how he pronounces them on page 11, and that's the normal pronunciation. If you go to seminary, you may want to be familiar with those so you'll understand what other people are saying to you. I have it on good authority. A young man, several of our young men have gone to seminary, and one in particular told me just recently that he had no problem understanding what they were saying. They had a little problem understanding him in his diphthongs. But you can look over here and you can pretty well see what they've done, and let that be your guide as you go on to further study somewhere else. But what I want to talk to you about here is, how do you go about doing it yourself? How do you keep at it? Even if you're going to seminary, you may have 2 or 3 months before you go. You ought to stay in the Word. And one of the things you're going to need is some tools. Now we have available through Video Bible Library a diskette that goes on the Apple II, which is a vocabulary review for Machen. You may find this helpful if you write, and I'm sure they'll tell you what it's all about. Then you ought to get yourself a few good books. First of all, you ought to have Arndt and Gingrich. You ought to have a good lexicon. We've talked about that before. Bauer's lexicon, translated by Arndt and Gingrich and brought up to date. There's a new one. Don't get the old variety. Get the new one. University of Chicago Press. Then there is Moulton and Geeden lexicon. It's a lexicon that's based on the Greek text and has the Greek text in it. It doesn't have just a word in Greek and the rest in English. It's all in Greek, so that when you're reading it, you get a good Greek context. I recommend Moulton and Geeden as your concordance. Then there's a good set of word pictures, Robertson's word pictures, and these are very helpful in understanding. It's a 6-volume set. He goes through the whole New Testament, book by book, chapter by chapter, and gives you some really good insight on the grammar. So I recommend A.T. Robertson as well. Then probably your best tool at this point in the study is going to be Dana and Manti. Dana and Manti is an intermediate grammar. There are other grammars, but Dana and Manti has a really good grammar, and it will be good to go from what you know now to this particular grammar. Now I want to show you a couple of things that this grammar does so that you'll know what you're getting into. For instance, he goes farther than your introductory grammar. You'd expect that. I've turned here to the adverbial participle. Remember we talked about that, and we said a adverbial participle is temporal. It talks about the action of the verb in relation to the time of the main verb and so forth. Temporal. That's one use. Dana and Manti gives you, look, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 more uses, or 10 uses altogether for the participle. This will be tremendously helpful in your study. And I would say to you, use this to classify things, get down to a finer classification, and I'll tell you how to do that as we go over here to the flip chart. Study Dana and Manti. We're talking about getting into that book and really finding out what he says. Read it. You'll find it fascinating. I believe that one of the most fascinating things you'll do is to read Dana and Manti. Now, that sounds like, oh, here's a Greek teacher saying this is going to be fun. I think it is. You'll read some things in there, and you'll say, oh, yeah, that's what Machen meant when he said that. And then you'll find the details in Dana and Manti. Then, choose a small New Testament book. Take Philippians or Thessalonians or something like that, and do a detailed study. First of all, you'll want to do a translation. Now, what I'm telling you here is what we do in our fourth semester. We guide our students through this kind of thing. A good translation. Write out your own translation. Using a lexicon, using whatever helps you need, but get a good translation that you're comfortable with. Then diagram the book. What fun to diagram a whole book of the New Testament. And then, the third, you want to classify all the words, phrases, and clauses. If it's in a clause, then look at Dana and Manti, see what in a clauses can do. If it's a temporal clause, what kind of a clause is it, and so forth. Do all of that with every word, phrase, and clause. Find out the various nuances and make a decision. You may not be right, but at least you've made a decision, and it will help you to learn not only the grammar, it'll help you learn that book, and it'll help you to learn the various classifications of things, and you'll probably begin to know a little bit about Dana and Manti, which is an excellent grammar. Then write a commentary. Well, how do you write a commentary? Well, you've done all the work. You've translated, you've diagrammed, you've done all the classification. Now sit down with either making your own outline, or maybe if that's a little bit hard for you, take someone else's outline. Get a good outline of the book. You'll find them in good commentaries, and then begin to write a commentary, and do so using some helps, using some commentaries. Someone said one time that when you're in a library, you're standing on the shoulders of those who have gone before you. That's what you want to do. Stand on the shoulders of these men. They've done some good work. You don't start with ground zero in anything anymore. So begin to use the helps. International Critical Commentary is a commentary that you would find much value in. They really get into the grammar. And now that you know Greek, you're able to use something like that. New Testament, or the New International Commentary, a very good commentary as well. More up to date, but I think probably not as grammatical as is the ICC. Then Hendrickson. Hendrickson lives down near us in Boca Raton. Really fine writer. He keeps on writing. I hope the Lord lets him live. He's about 85. Hope he lives to be 150. So he can keep on writing the great commentaries that he does. It'll be very helpful to find out what Hendrickson has done. He's only done maybe a third of the New Testament so far. But if he's done your book, get Hendrickson. Lenski has done the whole New Testament. And probably the most grammatical writer you'll find. So use Lenski as well. Nicole, Interpreter's Greek New Testament. Fine commentary on the Greek New Testament. And then maybe a little less expensive, the Tyndale series. These are excellent books. They have them in paperback. You can get them for maybe $50, $60 for the whole New Testament. And that's a bargain. There are many others, so don't take these as the only list, but use others and get into your commentary. Make your own commentary. And then remember that you're doing this not for yourself alone. You're doing it for others. Don't let your Greek die. Keep digging and sharing with other people. Help other people to learn it. Get other people into the Greek. Tell them about how you learn. Pass along your tape, or bring some people over from your church into your house on a Monday night and say, let's study Greek every Monday night, and you teach them. You'd be surprised how much you'll learn by doing that. But really, what we're after is, let that word get inside of you. Don't put the Greek aside and say, well, I'm going to get it, it's academic, I know this, and then lay all that you know on people. Let that word get inside of you and begin to change you. Because remember, Paul says we are to let that word make us something different, to change us. Let us be what the Lord wants us to be. Don't make it just an academic exercise. If it is that, then I would prefer you not even have started. And certainly don't let this thing pass off on someone else. Paul said in 2 Corinthians chapter 3 and verse 18 that we're changed from glory to glory by the mirror of the Word. Never miss that idea. Getting into the Word, let that Word change you, and then the reason for which God has saved you will come about, and that is that you be conformed to the image of Jesus Christ. God bless you as you do it.